What does it mean in the Bible, according to the order of Melchizedek? Many generate the idea of what the order of Melchizedek is. We see texts that determine this function of order of Melchizedek. To correctly understand the term order H1700, which would mean an arrangement or placement of something that creates order, we need to understand the term in the bridges of the original languages of the text, which would be Hebrew and Greek. In Psalm 110:4, we have Hebrew, but we have its Greek bridge in the Septuagint. Therefore, we have the Hebrew strand dibrâh, and its Greek parallel taxis. In both dictionaries we have the term order as intercession. In fact, none of them generates the meaning of mandate, that is, order is not that it was the type John ordered Pedro to work. In fact, the idea of the two terms is sequence order. But we must understand that the main root of the term is equality between two things, that is, we are determining that Melchizedek is similar in position to the Anointed One. Defining that both Melchizedek and the Anointed One are priests forever. What we have in Greek is that taxis comes from the root tasso, which fully defines an order of official dignity. This is clearly demonstrated by the text one mediator between God and men, Christ Jesus, man. If we go to Hebrew we have dibrâh, which is the feminine of dabar, which has the radical dabar, which involves the concept of connection, which is to point, or to define. Thus the foundation of order is to inform. In the verse then we have that Jesus and Melchizedek are defined on the same scale. The system of idealizing succession by death does not fit here because the Greek and Hebrew term does not support the need for death, nor does the other have to leave what he was doing, that is, Melchizedek is still a priest because Jesus is a priest. It is only shown that Jesus is a priest. In this case, even though he is a priest similar to Melchizedek, Jesus has the tools to intercede for man, that is, he is a man. Defining that Jesus is a man does not make him impossible to be God. It must be understood that the term God in Portuguese comes from the Greek theos that comes from the Proto-European meaning from heaven, so what comes from heaven is God, and divine is the characteristic of what comes from heaven. In the Hebrew concept we have Elohim, which is the existence of God in its expanded form, so that everything that acts on the obedience of divine control is God. So with all linguistic foundations, it is not being defined that Jesus is not God, it is not being analyzed by this field of vision. What we base is that in the defined concept of the order of Melchizedek, we have that the need for Jesus as an integral part of humanity is necessary for intercession, because we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, who, like us, was tempted in everything, but without sin. Thus we can observe that the Levitical order was only a shadow, since because it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins, that is to say, it is natural to observe that the actions of the Levites were only a shadow, because in fact they did not forgive sins. Thus we have that the true eternal priest is Melchizedek, but as a work of atonement it could not be done, leaving it to the task of transmitting and acting out the divine will to men. Even though Jesus was of the order of Melchizedek, this one has a function that could not be done by Melchizedek, which is the atonement for his blood, since Jesus was made the guarantor of so much better covenant. In fact, the Levites cannot be eternal priests because of death, and indeed, those were made priests in large numbers, because by death they were prevented from remaining, so only an eternal priest of the same Melchizedek classification could, but this, because it remains forever, has its perpetual priesthood, be the true priest and not a Levite. In fact, because it is known in advance that a Levite priest would not serve to be a priest, being only a typological priest, we have the 12 tribes and even political Israel to be a typology. the real facts being what they really are, the real facts, as the divine actions that occur in heaven, and the actions and occurrences on earth through the prophecies. So the Levitical priestly effects and the norms that govern this effect are shadows of things to come, but the body is Christ's. Keep in mind what Levitical norms are and what are norms of love. One must know what sin is to be purified by obedience. Now obeying God is not a Levitical rule, since Abram had no Levite priest and obeyed God, like Noah, Enoch and others. What does it mean in the Bible, according to the order of Melchizedek? Many generate the idea of what the order of Melchizedek is. We see texts that determine this function of order of Melchizedek. To correctly understand the term order H 1700, which would mean an arrangement or placement of something that creates order, we need to understand the term in the bridges of the original languages of the text.
If you are looking for more content from different areas, visit the reformadorstad.com website. News and detailed content can be found. With system of research and organization of text and video.